You're holding yourself like someone who expects to be searched.
I've always been cautious.
You just lied to me.
I didn't.
You did, and you were afraid. Tell me, who are you?
Amara Okoye.
Speak up.
These men, they seized my brother. Said I should play along or they kill him. I had no option.
My wife was introduced to you under a false name.
My name is Amara Okoye. I was forced into an identity that was never mine.
On the day his empire was meant to secure its future, a woman vanished, quietly replaced by another who wore her face like a lie. As a globally feared Korean CEO with Mafia blood in his veins prepares to enter an arranged marriage, his legendary instincts begin to itch. The bride before him is flawless, too flawless. She is not the woman he was promised, but uncovering the truth may destroy the fragile alliance holding his world together. This is a story of stolen identity, forbidden attraction, and a deception so deep that love itself becomes the most dangerous variable. Can the Mafia boss really tell truth from deception? Drop yes or no in the comments if you're obsessed already, and subscribe/follow so you don't miss when he finally figures it out. The truth is about to burn everything down. The hall was built to intimidate. That was the first thing Amara Okoye noticed as the doors slid open and sound rushed in. Soft classical strings, murmurs in multiple languages, the measured hush of power gathering in one place. The ceiling of the grand Seo Rin pavilion arched like a cathedral, glass and steel curving upward into a design meant to remind everyone present that this union was not about love. It was about permanence, control, legacy. She tightened her grip on the bouquet as the doors sealed behind her. This was the day her life was meant to begin. Not her life, someone else's. Cameras flashed, though not openly. This was not a celebrity wedding. It was something far more dangerous, an agreement between empires disguised as romance. Korean conglomerate royalty on one side, African energy and shipping magnates on the other. CEOs, ministers, shadow brokers, and men whose names never appeared on paper sat in neat rows, their faces unreadable. At the altar stood Kang Jae-hwan. Amara had seen him in photographs. Everyone had. He was the kind of man business magazines called visionary and enemies called inevitable. Late 30s, sharp-boned, tall without looking like he tried. His black suit was tailored within an inch of devotion, the fabric catching light like it knew better than to misbehave. His face was calm, almost indifferent, but his eyes, dark, steady, observant, were not those of a man waiting to be married. They were the eyes of a man waiting for a verdict. As Amara stepped forward, she felt it immediately. His attention sharpened. Not warmth, not curiosity. Assessment. Her heart stumbled, but her posture didn't. She had practiced this walk until her feet bled. Chin level, pace unhurried, smile restrained, never eager, never cold. She was not a bride in love. She was a bride who understood duty. The music swelled. Each step echoed like a countdown. 3 months earlier, she had been a woman with a name that belonged to her. Now, she was Seo Rin. Or rather, she was the woman standing in for her. No one else in the room knew that the real Seo Rin had vanished before dawn, leaving behind a silk robe on a hotel floor and a phone submerged in the Han River. No one knew that by sunrise, a quiet meeting had taken place in a private terminal, where Amara was offered a choice that was not really a choice at all. Become the bride, or watch your younger brother disappear. She reached the altar and stopped. Jae-hwan turned fully toward her. Up close, the rumors made sense. There was something unnerving about him. Not cruelty, not arrogance, but precision. He looked at her the way surgeons looked at scans, the way generals looked at terrain. He took in her face, her stance, the subtle tension in her shoulders. For a fraction of a second, his gaze lingered on her eyes. Something flickered. Amara felt a cold bead of fear slide down her spine. He knows. The officiant began speaking in Korean, his voice smooth, ceremonial. Amara understood enough to follow along, but not enough to relax. She focused on breathing, on keeping her expression serene, on remembering the dossier drilled into her skull. Seo Rin was educated in Switzerland. Multilingual, reserved, allergic to lilies, hated being touched unexpectedly, wrote with her left hand, had a faint scar on her right ankle from a childhood fall. Amara had memorized another woman's life like scripture. Still, Jae-hwan's gaze never softened. If you're already sensing something isn't right with this wedding, hit like and subscribe now. This story is only just beginning, and the deception runs deeper than you think. The vows came. She repeated them flawlessly. Her Korean was careful, accented just enough to match years abroad. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't tremble when he took them, though the contact sent a jolt through her chest. His skin was warm, his grip firm but not possessive, too controlled. When he slid the ring onto her finger, his thumb brushed her knuckle in a gesture so subtle no one else would have noticed. He paused, just a beat too long. Then he leaned closer, as if adjusting her hand, and spoke under his breath in English. "You're holding yourself like someone who expects to be searched." Her pulse spiked. She smiled, the practiced, elegant curve of Seo Rin's mouth, and replied just as quietly, "I've always been cautious." His eyes locked onto hers. For the first time since she entered the hall, something like interest surfaced. The applause came in a wave. The marriage was sealed. Contracts were already activating behind the scenes, shipping routes unlocking, funds transferring, enemies recalculating. Amara became Kang Jae-hwan's wife, and Kang Jae-hwan became absolutely certain that the woman he had just married was not who she claimed to be. The reception unfolded like a diplomatic summit disguised as celebration. Conversations hummed in clusters, glasses chimed, and a live orchestra softened the edges of sharp alliances. Amara moved beside her husband, playing her role with meticulous care. He barely spoke. Instead, he watched. She felt it constantly, his attention following the tilt of her head, the cadence of her laughter, the way she responded to old acquaintances of Seo Rin's family. Every interaction was a test, whether she knew it or not. She passed them all. Too well. That, more than anything, unsettled him. Jae-hwan had built his empire on pattern recognition. Logistics, after all, was the art of predicting movement. Goods, money, people. Lies followed patterns too. Fear had rhythms. Greed left fingerprints. The woman at his side moved like someone trained to disappear into expectations. When an elderly Korean board member kissed her cheek, she stiffened imperceptibly before relaxing. Seo Rin had adored public affection, according to his files. When an African delegate joked warmly, she responded with humor that cut just a shade sharper than expected. And then there was her silence. Seo Rin had been nervous, verbose when anxious. This woman conserved words like ammunition. He leaned in as they posed for photographs. "You're quieter than usual," he murmured in Korean. She glanced up, eyes steady. "Perhaps I finally learned the value of listening." A clever answer. Too clever. Across the room, Jae-hwan's head of security, Min Jae, caught his eye and gave a nearly imperceptible nod. The background checks had been exhaustive. DNA confirmed. Facial recognition flawless. Even biometric markers aligned. Yet everything in Jae-hwan's body rejected the data. Intuition was not mystical. It was accumulated evidence the conscious mind hadn't yet organized. And it was screaming. As the evening deepened, the guests thinned. Private conversations replaced formalities. Amara excused herself to the terrace. The cool night air a welcome relief from the pressure coiling in her chest. Seoul glittered below, the city alive and indifferent to the bargains made above it. She allowed herself one breath of honesty. "I survived the altar, Behind her, the terrace door slid open. She didn't turn. You favor the left side when you're thinking, Jae-hwan said mildly. Her shoulders tightened before she could stop them. I've always done that, she replied. So I was told. He joined her at the railing, hands resting casually, gaze fixed on the skyline. From a distance, they looked like any newlywed couple stealing a quiet moment. Up close, the air between them felt wired. You didn't correct the ambassador when he mispronounced your middle name, he continued. You used humor instead. She shrugged. Correcting powerful men rarely ends well. He smiled faintly. That's not how Seo Rin would have handled it. Amara turned to face him then, letting a hint of steel enter her expression. People change. Yes, he agreed softly. They do. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he said, You're not afraid of me. She met his gaze without flinching. Should I be? That smile again, brief, sharp. Most people are. Well, she said, choosing her words carefully, most people don't marry you. Something in his eyes shifted. Amusement, perhaps, or the beginning of something more dangerous. Come, he said, offering his arm. Our guests are leaving. Tomorrow will be busy. She took his arm, aware of the cameras watching from a distance, the security protocols tightening around them like a net. As they walked back inside, Amara felt the weight of the ring on her finger settle into something heavier than gold. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. Do you think Kang Jae-hwan already knows she's an impostor? Or is he starting to fall anyway? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's see who's reading the signs right. The private residence was a study in controlled minimalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the river, the interior all dark wood and muted tones. Everything had a place, and everything unnecessary had been removed, including illusions. Amara stood just inside the bedroom, her overnight bag at her feet, pulse ticking too fast. The door closed behind them with a soft, decisive sound. There would be no cameras here, no audience. Jae-hwan loosened his tie and set it aside with careful precision. You can take the bed, he said. I'll use the adjoining room. Relief nearly buckled her knees. You're not. She stopped herself, recalibrating. Seo Rin would have assumed consummation. Expected it. He watched the conflict cross her face. No, he said simply. Tonight isn't about that. Why? He stepped closer, stopping just short of invading her space. Because I don't know you, he said. And because whatever game is being played around me, I don't intend to rush it. Her breath caught. I don't understand what you mean. I know, he replied. That's the interesting part. He turned away, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the echo of his certainty. Amara sank onto the edge of the bed, hands shaking now that the performance was over. She had fooled the room. She had not fooled the man. Somewhere in the city, the real Seo Rin was either running or already dead. Somewhere else, Amara's brother slept under armed guard, his safety conditional on her silence. And in this glass and steel fortress, a man whose instincts had built empires had decided to let a lie sit beside him and see what it revealed. She lay back, staring at the ceiling. This was no longer just survival. This was a waiting game. Before the truth explodes in the next part, make sure you're subscribed, because missing what comes next will change how this story hits. Jae-hwan stood alone in the adjoining room, phone in hand. Run it again, he said quietly. Every record, every biometric. I want anomalies, not confirmations. Yes, sir, Min-jae replied. If she's an impostor. She is, Jae-hwan said flatly. There was a pause. Then why marry her? Jae-hwan looked through the glass wall at the city beyond, at the river swallowing light. Because someone went to extraordinary lengths to put her in my path, he said. And I intend to find out why. He ended the call and set the phone down. In the next room, his wife, who was not his wife, lay awake, rehearsing lies she might never get to tell. The alliance was sealed. The deception had begun, and neither of them yet understood how badly the truth would burn. Help push this story toward 1 million views in 2026. like, share, and subscribe so this channel keeps bringing you cinematic stories where love and deception collide. Morning arrived without ceremony. Amara woke before the city did, her body trained by years of caution to surface at the slightest shift in sound. The room was still dim, the river outside wrapped in pale mist. For one disorienting second, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the ring on her finger, the man in the next room, the lie she was living inside. She sat up slowly, listening. No footsteps, no voices, just the quiet hum of a building designed to never truly sleep. She moved through her morning routine with care, showering, dressing in one of the perfectly arranged outfits prepared for Seo Rin. She studied herself in the mirror afterward, tilting her head, adjusting her posture. You are Yoon Seo Rin, she reminded herself. You have always been. The door between the rooms slid open as she finished. Kang Jae-hwan stepped inside, already dressed, his presence changing the air instantly. He looked as composed as he had the night before, but now there was something sharper in his gaze, as if sleep had only refined his focus. Good morning, he said. Good morning, she replied, matching his calm. You didn't sleep much. It wasn't a question. I rarely do in new places. He gestured toward the dining area. We have a schedule. Breakfast first. The table was set with understated elegance. Korean dishes balanced with continental options. Tea already poured. Amara sat when he did, conscious of every movement. You have meetings today, he said, scrolling through a tablet. 2 board calls. A luncheon with my mother. Her stomach tightened. I wasn't told. I know, he said mildly. I decided last night. Of course he did. His mother was not just family. She was a gatekeeper. A woman who had survived decades in a world that devoured softer people. You'll do fine, he added. Unless there's something you're worried about. She lifted her teacup. Should there be? Their eyes met over the rim. Another test. I suppose we'll find out, he said. The drive to the corporate headquarters was silent, the city blurring past tinted windows. Amara watched Seoul wake, vendors setting up stalls, commuters flooding sidewalks, a living system utterly unconcerned with the dangerous marriage occurring at its core. Inside the building, everything moved with choreographed efficiency. Staff bowed. Executives deferred. Doors opened before they were touched. This was his natural habitat. In the boardroom, Amara took her seat beside him, spine straight, expression neutral. She listened as discussions unfolded. Shipping corridors, energy contracts, regulatory pressure from 3 continents at once. She understood more than she let on. Her background in international development had not been accidental. The people who chose her had done so carefully. When a board member asked her opinion on a proposed West African port expansion, she hesitated, just long enough. I believe the projections underestimate local resistance, she said calmly. Infrastructure without community buy-in creates instability, which increases costs in the long run. The room stilled. Several executives exchanged looks. Jae-hwan turned his head slightly toward her. Interesting, he said. You didn't mention that in our prior briefings. She met his gaze. You didn't ask. A ripple of restrained amusement passed around the table. He nodded once. Noted. As the meeting continued, Jae-hwan watched her closely. She wasn't pretending to be intelligent. She was intelligent. And that complicated things. If you're noticing how well she's adapting to his world, hit like and subscribe now, because this marriage is becoming a game neither of them expected to play. The luncheon with his mother took place in a private dining room overlooking a garden meticulously shaped to appear natural. Madame Kang was already seated when they arrived. She rose slowly, her gaze locking onto Amara with unsettling focus. So, she said, in flawless English, this is my daughter-in-law. Amara bowed slightly, exactly as Seo Rin would have. It's an honor, madam. Is it? The older woman asked. Jae-hwan kissed his mother's cheek. You're interrogating her already. I'm observing, Madame Kang corrected. She gestured for them to sit. Tell me, Seo Rin, Do you still dislike ginger? Amara didn't hesitate. Only when it's overused. Madame Kang's eyes narrowed, just a fraction. And lilies? I avoid them. A pause. Good. The woman said finally. Allergies are tedious. Lunch progressed under a microscope. Every answer Amara gave was weighed. Every movement catalogued. By the end, sweat dampened her spine beneath silk. When Madame Kang excused herself, she leaned close to her son. She's different, she said quietly. Yes, Jae-hwan replied. Not weaker, his mother continued. Sharper. He said nothing. As they left, Amara exhaled shakily. You survived, Jae-hwan observed. Barely. He glanced at her. You handled her better than I expected. That's not reassuring. No, he agreed. It isn't. That evening, the first crack appeared. They were in his study when Min-jae entered, face tight. Sir, he said, we have a problem. Jae-hwan's gaze flicked to Amara, then back. Speak. One of the African partners has requested a private audience with your wife. Alone. Amara stiffened. That's unusual, Jae-hwan said. Yes, Min-jae agreed. And concerning. Jae-hwan studied Amara's reaction. The way her fingers curled. The way her breathing shifted. What do you think? He asked her. She chose her words carefully. If they're requesting privacy, refusing might suggest weakness. Or fear. His lips curved faintly. Very well. Arrange it. Min-jae hesitated. Sir, I'll be nearby. The meeting took place in a side salon, elegant and discreet. The man waiting inside was tall, silver-haired, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Kang, he greeted. Or should I say, Miss Okoye. The room tilted. Amara froze. Jae-hwan, watching through one-way glass, felt something inside him go very still. The man smiled thinly. Relax. If I wanted to expose you, I wouldn't be here. Amara swallowed. What do you want? To ensure you remember who placed you here, he said. And who can remove you? She straightened. The deal was clear. Deals evolve, he replied. You're doing better than expected, which makes you dangerous. He leaned closer. Don't forget. You're expendable. He left without another word. Behind the glass, Jae-hwan's eyes darkened. So, her name was not Seo Rin, and she was being handled by someone bold enough to move inside his territory. Do you think he'll confront her now? Or let her believe she's still hidden? Tell me in the comments who you think makes the next move. That night, tension coiled thick between them. They stood in the bedroom, silence stretching. You handled today well, Jae-hwan said finally. Thank you. And the meeting? Her pulse thudded. Productive. He stepped closer. You didn't tell me someone recognized you. She lifted her chin. You didn't ask. For a long moment, he simply looked at her. Then he reached out, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the heat of his hand. Whatever you are, he said quietly, you're not careless. Her voice dropped. Neither are you. A charged beat passed. Then he stepped back. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow will be worse. She watched him leave, her chest tight. He knew. Not everything, but enough. And still, he hadn't exposed her. Not yet. She lay awake long into the night, wondering whether that restraint would save her or destroy them both. Before everything unravels in the next part, make sure you're subscribed, because the truth is about to turn lethal. In his private office, Jae-hwan stared at the surveillance report. Amara Okoye. The name glowed on the screen like a challenge. Find out who put her here, he said into the phone. Quietly. Yes, sir. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. He should have exposed her immediately. Instead, he felt something far more dangerous take root. Curiosity. Because the woman pretending to be his wife was not just surviving his world. She was changing it. And that made her either his greatest liability or his most valuable ally. Help push this story toward 1 million views in 2026. Like, share, and subscribe so this channel keeps delivering cinematic stories where love walks hand in hand with danger. Truth has a smell. Kang Jae-hwan had learned that early in life. Lies were polished, rehearsed, symmetrical. Truth was messy. It leaked. It lingered long after the room had been cleared. Amara Okoye was leaking truth. Not in her words. She was far too careful for that. But in the way her behavior had begun to change now that she sensed she was no longer invisible. She woke earlier than before. Ate less. Watched exits without realizing she was doing it. She was preparing. For what? Jae-hwan didn't yet know. The car ride to the charity gala that evening passed in taut silence. Outside, Seoul glittered in black-tie brilliance. Inside, the air between them felt like a wire pulled too tight. You don't attend events like this often, he said casually, eyes forward. I do when they're useful, she replied. To whom? She met his gaze. To the people who survived them. A clean answer. Not the right one. At the venue, Amara slipped seamlessly into the role expected of her, gracious, composed, quietly commanding attention without demanding it. She danced when required, smiled when photographed, spoke in low, controlled tones. And yet, she never drank more than 2 sips. She never turned her back to open space. She never allowed herself to be separated from Jae-hwan for long. That wasn't training from a finishing school. That was conditioning. If you're picking up on the survival instincts she can't fully hide anymore, like and subscribe now. This story is entering its most dangerous phase. The first real mistake happened just after midnight. They were halfway through polite conversation with a European arms consultant when Amara stiffened. Jae-hwan felt it through her arm before he saw it on her face. Across the room, a man had entered quietly, dressed in charcoal, his presence subtle enough to evade casual notice. But Amara noticed. Her breath shortened. Her fingers tightened against Jae-hwan's sleeve. Who is that? He asked softly. She hesitated. A fraction of a second too long. I don't know, she said. The lie was clumsy. Jae-hwan excused them without explanation and steered her toward a side corridor. The moment the doors closed, he turned on her. You just lied to me, he said calmly. Her pulse thundered in her ears. I didn't. You did, he cut in. And you were afraid. She looked away. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Who is he? No one, she said. Not anymore. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. For the first time since their marriage, anger flared openly between them. Do you think I enjoy being lied to in my own house? He asked quietly. She laughed once, sharp and bitter. Do you think I enjoy living a lie that could get me killed? The words hung between them. Loaded. Exposed. Jae-hwan went very still. You admit it, then, he said. She swallowed. I admit nothing. But her eyes betrayed her. He could see the war there now. The calculations, the fear, the resolve. You're not Seo Rin, he said. Silence. Then, softly, no. He nodded once, absorbing it. Who are you? She closed her eyes. And for a moment, the mask cracked. My name is Amara Okoye, she said. And I was never supposed to survive this long. They sat in his car afterward, neither speaking. Jae-hwan dismissed security with a gesture and drove himself, the city slipping by in streaks of light. You were coerced, he said eventually. I saw it. Yes. Threats. Yes. Family. She nodded. He exhaled slowly. And Seo Rin. Gone, Amara said. I don't know if she's alive. The truth settled heavily between them. At the residence, he led her not to the bedroom, but to the secure conference room beneath the house. Steel walls. Signal blocked. No recording devices. You understand what you've done, he said, once the door sealed. I do. You've implicated yourself in criminal conspiracy. I didn't have a choice. There is always a choice. She laughed hollowly. That's easy to say from your position. He studied her. You think I've never been trapped? Her eyes lifted, startled. Everything I am, he continued, was chosen for me long before I could object. The admission surprised them both. A quiet moment followed. Then he said, Tell me everything. And she did. The debt. The intermediaries. The name of the man who had confronted her earlier. The threats made in quiet rooms with no witnesses. By the time she finished, the silence felt different. He stood, pacing slowly. They used you as a placeholder, he said. And they underestimated you. They usually do. He stopped in front of her. You should hate me, she said. For not exposing me. I should, he agreed. But you don't. No, he said. I don't. Because somewhere between deception and survival, something else had taken root. Something neither of them had planned. Do you think he's protecting her because it's strategic or because it's already personal? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The retaliation came faster than expected. 2 nights later, Jaehwan's convoy was intercepted. Not with force, but with precision. Traffic lights failed simultaneously. Streets emptied. A digital chokehold. Amara felt the shift before the first car swerved. This is for me, she said. Jaehwan didn't answer. He was already issuing commands, calm and lethal. The attack wasn't loud. No guns. No explosions. Just a message delivered through disruption. By the time they reached safety, one of Jaehwan's offshore accounts had been drained. A warning. That night, Amara stood on the terrace, shaking. I'll leave, she said. Before they escalate. He joined her, his expression unreadable. If you leave, he said, they'll kill you. And if I stay, they'll come for you anyway. She turned to him. Then why keep me here? He met her gaze. Because now, he said, you're my problem. Something unspoken passed between them. A decision. That night, they didn't sleep in separate rooms. They didn't touch, either. They lay awake, side by side, listening to each other breathe. For the first time, the lie between them felt thinner than the truth they hadn't yet dared to name. Before the final battle reshapes everything, make sure you're subscribed, because the next part changes the rules entirely. In a private room elsewhere in the city, the man who had orchestrated the swap listened to a report. She's confessed, the operative said. To Kang Jaehwan. The man smiled slowly. Good, he said. Then he'll hesitate. Hesitate how? Emotion always creates delay, the man replied. And delay is where empires fall. He turned to the window, watching the city pulse. Prepare the endgame. Back at the residence, Amara closed her eyes, unaware that the most dangerous phase had just begun. And Kang Jaehwan, lying beside her, knew one thing with terrifying clarity. He would burn the world before he let them take her. Help push this story toward 1 million views in 2026. Like, share, and subscribe so this channel keeps delivering high-stakes stories where love becomes the ultimate risk. War did not always announce itself with gunfire. Sometimes it arrived as silence. Kang Jaehwan sensed it the moment the city went too quiet. No alerts. No sudden movements on his perimeter. Just the kind of stillness that meant someone was confident enough to wait. Amara felt it too. She stood at the window, watching the river slide past like a dark ribbon, her reflection faint against the glass. They're not rushing, she said. That's worse. Yes, Jaehwan replied. It means they think time is on their side. He crossed the room, stopping beside her. For days now, their proximity had become instinctive. Not intimacy, yet, but alignment. Two people bracing against the same incoming force. You could still disappear, she said quietly. I know routes. I know how to vanish. And let them use you again, he asked. No. She turned to him. This isn't your war. He looked at her steadily. It is now. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she nodded once. All right, she said. Then we end it properly. If you're still here, still invested, hit like and subscribe now, because this is the final turn and nothing survives it unchanged. The endgame began with information. Jaehwan dismantled the illusion that power was only violence. He froze accounts quietly, rerouted shipping lanes subtly, leaked just enough data to make enemies distrust one another. He didn't strike first. He destabilized. Meanwhile, Amara stepped into the light. Not as Seo Rin, not as a ghost, but as herself. She requested a meeting with the African Consortium, the same network that had engineered the bride swap. The request alone caused ripples. No one expected the impostor to stop hiding. The meeting took place in a neutral high-rise, sterile and impersonal. The man who had threatened her before sat at the head of the table, smiling thinly. "You've grown bold," he said. "I've grown tired," Amara replied. He chuckled. "You were never meant to last this long." "No," she agreed. "I was meant to disappear quietly. Or die. And yet," he said, spreading his hands, "here you are." She leaned forward. "You miscalculated. Oh, you thought Kang Jae-hwan would expose me to protect his alliances," she said. "You didn't consider that he might burn them instead." For the first time, the man's smile faltered. Behind the glass wall, unseen, Jae-hwan listened. "You have leverage," the man said. "Don't pretend otherwise." Amara met his gaze. "So do I." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, proof of embezzlement, trafficking, political bribery, names that could not afford daylight. "You wanted a placeholder," she said calmly. "I became a witness." Silence swallowed the room. "You think this will save you?" the man asked softly. "No," she said. "I think it ends you." The retaliation was immediate and brutal. That night, the residents came under attack. Not directly. They went for perception. News broke across multiple channels. Allegations questioning the legitimacy of Kang Jae-hwan's marriage. Whispered claims of fraud. Speculation about the bride's identity. The truth, twisted into a weapon. Amara watched the headlines scroll, her chest tight. "I'm sorry," she said. "This is because of me." Jae-hwan didn't look away from the screen. "No," he said. "This is because they're afraid." He turned to her. "And now," he continued, "we make it public, properly." Her eyes widened. "You mean?" "Yes," he said. "All of it." The press conference was scheduled for dawn. By sunrise, the world was watching. Jae-hwan stood at the podium, composed as ever. Amara stood beside him, not hidden, not diminished. "My wife was introduced to you under a false name," he said calmly. "That deception was engineered without my consent, and without hers." Gasps rippled. "She is not a criminal," he continued. "She is a victim of coercion. And today, she is choosing transparency." He stepped back. Amara moved forward. "My name is Amara Okoye," she said clearly. "I was forced into an identity that was never mine. I stayed because leaving would have killed someone I love." Her voice didn't shake. "I am done running." Questions exploded. Cameras flashed. But the damage was already done to the people who had underestimated both of them. Within hours, arrests followed. Warrants issued. Accounts seized. The network collapsed faster than anyone expected. Do you think telling the truth was the most dangerous move or the smartest? Let me know in the comments. The aftermath was quieter. The residents felt larger without the constant threat pressing in. For the first time since the wedding, Amara slept through the night. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Jae-hwan stood at the window, sleeves rolled up, looking almost human. "It's over," she said softly. "It is," he agreed. She hesitated. "What happens to us?" He turned to her. "That," he said, "depends on what you want." She studied him. The man who had chosen her truth over his empire's comfort. The man who had let her become real. "I want a life that's mine," she said. "No masks." He nodded. "Then take it." "And you?" A pause. "I don't know how to be anything other than what I am," he said honestly. "But I'm learning." She smiled faintly. "So am I." The annulment papers sat and signed on the table. They had discussed it. Rationally. Cleanly. But neither had reached for the pen. Jae-hwan broke the silence. "We could end it," he said. "Publicly. Respectfully." "And privately?" she asked. His gaze held hers. "Privately," he said, "I would ask you to stay." Her heart skipped. "Not as a strategy," he added. "As a choice." She took a breath. "I won't be protected," she said. "I won't be hidden. I know. I won't be owned. I wouldn't dare." She reached for the papers, then slid them aside. "Then," she said, "I'll stay. Not as an impostor. Not as a bride forced into place. But as the woman he chose anyway." Months later, the world had adjusted. Kang Jae-hwan's empire looked different. Leaner, more transparent, less tolerant of shadow games that fed on silence. Amara built something of her own beside it. Not dependent, not ornamental, real. They were photographed occasionally. An Afro-Korean couple who had survived a scandal that should have destroyed them. When asked once how he knew she was the one, Jae-hwan answered simply. She told the truth when lying would have been safer. When Amara was asked why she stayed, she smiled. He saw me when I was pretending to be someone else, and chose me anyway. The ring on her finger was no longer a symbol of deception. It was a decision. A dangerous one. A real one. Before you leave, help push this story toward 1 million views in 2026. Like, share, and subscribe so this channel keeps bringing you stories where love survives the truth, not the lie.